The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Ole Miss is playing Oklahoma on Saturday, and thanks to the Florida Gators, it's gotten a little bit interesting.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is interesting because we've been joking over the course of the week because of all of the Florida noise that's happening up around there. Heck, Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators, he's like just roving, going around trying to start an argument with absolutely everybody. It's funny. It really is. But after the 2022 experience when Auburn did this to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss started 7-1 and ended up 8-5, Ole Miss fans are a little bit concerned about this game and what can happen. Now, is this the Alabama game from 2022 that Ole Miss actually played really well in? Or is this the Arkansas game where they absolutely did not? That's going to be a major, major storyline in this game.
Yeah, so we've got a top 15 matchup. And here we got Florida like living out the meme, get in there and make it about yourself. You know, that's exactly what's happening right now. And I mean, it's going to be a fantastic football game on the field, but it certainly has far-reaching implications beyond what happens on Saturday because Lane Kiffin, Florida, Ole Miss, that little love triangle, it could be severely impacted by what happens on Saturday. Not to mention, this game is going to have huge college football playoff implications as well.
Yeah, I honestly think that if Ole Miss can go into, is it Owen Field or Gaylord Stadium?
So it's Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
Owen Field. Named after one of their early head coaches, Benny Owen.
Okay. So when you look at that, if Ole Miss wins this game, if they go into Oklahoma and wins this lifelong rival that they've had for 2 centuries now,
yeah.
If they can get that, they're going to go 11-1. They're going to host a playoff game in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford. Lane Kiffin is not going to Florida if he's in the playoff at that point. If Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, I think they're going to drop another game after that, and they're going to end up 9-3 or 8-4 at that point and missing the playoffs, and then everything's on the table. So this game has very much meaning, especially to the Ole Miss fans, of where it could go. Yeah. Now, I think Ole Miss has a better team than Oklahoma, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful type of way. I think the way they're set up, the things that Oklahoma does poorly is exactly what Ole Miss defends against poorly. Like Ole Miss is bad against the run. Oklahoma's not running the ball at a high clip. Oklahoma turns the ball over. Ole Miss can't get turnovers. So it's kind of a resistible force versus a movable object type deal when these two teams get together. But offensively, the quarterback matchup potentially with John Mateer and Trinidad Chambliss, it has a chance to be really fun. And Oklahoma fans, don't get excited when you see a 5'9", 5'10" quarterback scrambling all over the field there and have flashbacks to somebody that previously won a Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. He's a really good player. Everybody's going to see, hey, he went to a Division II school. How can he do it when he steps up? No, he's a really good player, and he proved that against Georgia, honestly.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why somebody has to start off at a D2 school or a JUCO or an FCS program. There's a lot of reasons why that can happen. Sometimes guys just get strictly overlooked in the recruiting process. I mean, we've been doing this a while and you see it all the time. Guys that are unranked players or 3-star prospects, John Mateer being a great example, had just one FBS offer altogether. And here we are. We've got 2 quarterbacks that went under the radar on the recruiting trail, and now they're starring in a top 15 matchup. That just goes to show you that sometimes recruiting experts, they get it, and sometimes they miss the boat a little bit. But yeah, Trinidad Chambliss, he's a great quarterback, and I think he's doing a really good job at distributing the football this year. I was talking on my show on Wednesday just about the thing that has me the most concerned is the bevy of weapons that they have at their disposal. We have 5 guys over 300 yards receiving, 6 guys with 16 receptions on the year. So Lane and Trinidad, they're moving the ball and they're making sure that everybody's eating a little bit. And 4 guys that are averaging more than 15 yards per reception so far. And that's just nuts, man. And so yes, Oklahoma is going to struggle a little bit against this passing attack. They're really, really good and they can make big plays. It's just a matter of, can the secondary step up and play their best game of the season? We saw the offensive line play their best game of the season last week against South Carolina, where they're actually able to run the ball a little bit, have a good opportunity now to run the ball against an Ole Miss team that's 99th in the nation in rush defense. Not great. But if Oklahoma shows that, hey, we're running the ball like we did prior to South Carolina, then it could be a little bit of a slog. But if they can build on it, I think it's really going to be in Oklahoma's favor to slow the game down a little bit. Even try to play a little bit of keep away, try to keep Trinidad and the offense off the field, keep your defense fresh, and try to win a close game. It's going to be a close game. I just know that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive it's going to be a close game. And we had a group chat text earlier in the week when we were talking about it, and you brought up last year's game of what was going on. And you actually asked the question, is Trinidad Chambliss a better quarterback than Jackson Dart? Which, no, he's not. He's not. I'm not saying that at all. But this Ole Miss offense is completely different than that team. This team, Trinidad Chambliss, will have 2, 3, 4 receptions to 8 different wide receivers in a game. Jackson Dart would have 11 receptions to Trey Harris in a game. And because of that, Brent Venables, who's a really good defensive coach, it's any defensive coach can take away something in a game. If you know what you need to take away, you're going to be able to perform. The strength of this Ole Miss team, and honestly, what makes Trinidad better than he probably is as a quarterback, is the fact that you don't really know who to double team against Ole Miss. You don't know who is going to be the guy in that game. Is it going to be Deshaun Stribling, former Oklahoma State Cowboy, by the way? Is it going to be Caden Lee? Is it going to be Trey Wallace or the tight end? Ole Miss has a tight end that's averaging nearly 24 yards a catch or something like that. It's absolutely nuts. And it's because that whoever you decide to shade to and do the things that honestly all defensive quarterbacks do or coordinators do in college football, Ole Miss does have that bevy of weapons to where if you're looking right, just throw it left. And that's what they've been successful with this year. Now, the problem with Ole Miss, and we're going to talk about it, defensively, they've been doing a lot of the, I don't know, it's a version of the John Haycock Iowa State stuff where they're just rushing 3 and dropping 8 in coverage. It's kind of a version of that. I don't think it's going to be as predominant against Oklahoma this weekend. I think they're going to go to a little bit more pressure package. They're going to try and make John Mateer make decisions quickly because Oklahoma's turnover margin this season has not been particularly good. So the best thing that they can try and do is to speed up the game a little bit if they're not expecting it. And I think that is the defensive path to basically take away the running game and just really get after the quarterback. Now, does that mean that John Mateer is going to get loose a couple of times in the game? Probably. I mean, that's going to happen. But I do think that's a risk that Ole Miss is willing to take.
Yeah, if you try to play shell and just rush 3 and drop 8, that's not necessarily going to be a recipe for success because Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer showed last week they're willing to live in the short area of the field. Texas took away all the deep stuff, and they seemed to try to force the issue down the field, and it didn't work. Last week against South Carolina, they played more short intermediate ball in the passing game, and they ran the football. They were willing to nickel and dime their way on some scoring drives, and it worked. So I think it was a bit of a maturation process from John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle after that Texas loss to say, hey, we need to be willing to make some adjustments and take what the defense is willing to give us because we've got enough skill talent that we can create big plays after the catch, even if it's a 5-yard slant or a 6-yard out. So I think there's going to be some interesting chess pieces and chess matches happening in this game. I likened it to kind of an old-fashioned heavyweight bout that's going to go 15 rounds, and you're going to see each guy take a round here, around there, and it's going to just be a back-and-forth battle throughout the thing, and you're going to get to the 15th round on the scorecard, and you're going to, I don't know who's going to win this one. It's just going to be that close of a game.
Yeah, whenever you're dealing with lifelong rivals like this,
That's right.
you can't expect anything else. I mean,
Throw the record books out.
these rivals are permanent.
Permanent.
I mean, yeah, forget Bedlam, forget Nebraska. This Ole Miss rivalry, it just lives in Oklahoma fans' heads.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It seems to me both offenses have the advantage in this game. Do you agree with me? What's your take?
Yeah, I do. And they have the advantage for the exact same reason. They're both extremely tough running the ball for different ways of running the ball, but both two of the strongest teams in the conference at running the ball. Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts are a lethal duo that will give everybody fits, including Vanderbilt's defense, and they'll have to really game plan for that. And then, of course, the rushing attack, led by Diego Pavia, Cedric Alexander, and the things they can do in the option game and the things they can do formationally and things and blocking scheme wise to really put defenses in conflict. That's what makes Vanderbilt dangerous. So I'm excited to see this. If you like running, if you like offensive line play, this is the game for you to watch for sure.
Yeah, and to your point on both teams running the ball very differently, Missouri can be a very outside zone stretch type of team. I think, I would say it's fair to say Vanderbilt runs a little bit more at you for sure. Yeah. I'm just curious, Corey, I thought Auburn, especially in the second half, once they kind of realized that Missouri wasn't going to do much outside of the first 10 to 15 yards in the field, they got really aggressive, particularly against those Missouri runs. Lots of blitzing in the second half. Do you see Vanderbilt being that aggressive, or do you see maybe them trying to make Missouri march the ball downfield a little bit more?
I think it's a combo of both. I think Steve Gregory and Clark Lee, that duo of defensive coordinating, they do a good job of mixing it up, and they blitz heavy in certain situations, and then sometimes they'll play off. Against LSU, they dared them to run the ball. They were not going to let those receivers beat them, so they put more people back in coverage and had them rally down to the run. Now, it did cause LSU to rip off a few big runs, but for the most part, they held that rushing attack in check, aside from a few big chunk plays there. But what they really did was with the edge guys and at certain times, certain down and distance situations, certain points of the field, they brought intense heat and really got after Garrett Nussmeier. I think it's going to be the opposite of that against Missouri. They're going to be heavy on the run, and I think they're going to constrict the field and try to limit that space for Missouri and say, hey, we dare you to beat us over the top. You don't have Luther Burden anymore. You don't have Theo Weiss anymore. We dare you to come after us. You don't have Brady Cook. You don't have that passing attack. We dare you to do that. And if you hit some big plays in that, so be it. If LSU hit some big plays in the running game, so be it. Was kind of the mantra last week. So their game plan is going to be predicated towards Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, not letting them get a ton of space and really kind of clogging up those run lanes on that wide zone, stretch zone scheme that you guys have.
Yeah, I'll just say this from the Missouri perspective. You mentioned, of course, Luther Burden's gone. Brady Cook is gone. I do think Missouri has the playmakers on the outside and the inside to make a defense be able to pay, but sort of like last season, and maybe even statistically more so, Missouri just hasn't taken very many shots. And, well, last week against Auburn, it was kind of obvious why. It's tough to take deep shots when you don't have any pass protection. So that's one thing. I'm interested, though, on the explosive play side from Vanderbilt's perspective. You know, I think of Vanderbilt as more of an efficient type of offense. Where do they get their explosive plays from?
They get the explosive plays from being hyper efficient for like 8 plays in a row, 9 plays in a row.
Break a tackle, that kind of thing.
Yeah, break a tackle. You know, against Alabama, the safeties fit the run wrong and left a massive gap, and Cedric Alexander took it 65 to the house. They'll take a shot every once in a while. They haven't really connected as well on those. You know, as you know from last year's game, the first offensive play for Vanderbilt, they took that shot over the top to Joseph McVay. You know, that's the kind of thing they do. They wait, get you guys to come down against the run, and then they take a shot over the top. If they hit it, great. If they don't, they're going to let you know that they're going to do it. And then eventually those 3, 4, 5-yard runs turn into 10, 12, 15-yard runs, and then one breaks for 50 or 60. And that's kind of how they get their explosive plays. They're not an explosive offense by any stretch.
So since you brought up last year, I'm kind of curious, how much of obviously that was a heartbreaker for Vanderbilt last year, a double overtime game, I believe. Luther Burden had the game-winning touchdown catch there. How much did that game hurt Auburn last year? And do you think is that a game maybe that's stuck in their craw a little bit? Or do you think they're thinking revenge at all this season?
I mean, I think they always see this matchup as an important one. It's you know, ever since Missouri came into the conference, it was a SEC East battle that they would have. Missouri, what would you have, 12-4 against Vandy?
Something like that. That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds right.
So it's one of those games, not necessarily revenge. I mean, I guess you could say that. But it was such a hard-fought game. It's like, okay, we think we can just get ahead on this one. It's not any sort of revenge type factor, but the factor, like the same motivation we had for South Carolina, where against South Carolina, you're 0 for your last 16, you know, that sticks in your craw more than like, hey, we're 4-12 against Missouri. That game last year was one that we had in our fingertips and we let it go. We can play a little cleaner and win that thing in regulation. That's kind of the mentality. And right now, being 6-1, ranked 10th in the country, game days there, college football playoffs on the horizon. That's all. I mean, honestly, and this is still surreal for me to say, but that's the motivation for this game. Hey, you get one step closer to the college football playoff, and you beat Missouri. That out of the remaining 5 games on your schedule, that is by far the toughest. And then you get Texas next week, which that game at the beginning of the season was probably one of the toughest. Not so much anymore. And then you get Auburn and Kentucky, which, I mean, they're good teams, but I mean, let's be honest. And then Tennessee to end the season. Think about if Tennessee and Vanderbilt are fighting for that playoff spot at the end of the season. Think about how crazy that game is going to be. So
incredible.
And those things, those things are the motivating factors for Vanderbilt. And the 4-12 thing, I think they just want to work back towards getting even in that series too.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And weirdly, it almost seems like if you're a Vanderbilt fan, it's almost like, hey, we got to beat Missouri if we're going to have a special kind of season, just about any season, really. And, well, here we are. That probably it's either at Tennessee or Missouri at home there. Certainly those are your two toughest games left.
And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
The Utah Utes and Colorado Buffaloes face off this week in a pivotal Big 12 showdown. Can Utah bounce back? Can the Buffs build off their momentum?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Kevin, I think the biggest story going into this game is not Deion Sanders. It's not Kyle Whittingham either. I think it's Devin Dampier's availability. We're still waiting to hear like, hey, Whit mentioning an injury. You used to cover Utah. Whit mentioning an injury ever is like the biggest thing. So the fact that he was willing to say like, hey, it's a possibility that Bird Ficklin, Utah's backup, may go this week is a massive story to me. And look, that line right now is Utah 13.5. If that becomes official that Dampier's out, I think it's going to drop. And obviously the Buffs are building on some good momentum. They've been better than the records indicated all years. This one could get interesting, especially if Dampier doesn't play, Kevin.
Yeah, as someone who covered and hung around Utah for a year or so, to see or hear Kyle Whittingham talk about an injury like not 5 years after the fact, where he's like, you know what, Cam Rising, yeah, he is injured. Like that, as he's after the season or whatever, like that was shocking. And it is, I think, a game-changing injury, honestly, because if you're without Dampier, which Bird Ficklin is how you say his name, is I struggled to say on my show. Bird Ficklin is a very dynamic athlete himself, but I think you said this off air. He has like 9 passing attempts on the year.
He does. He's 9 for 9 though. 9 for 9, Kevin.
Hey, right? That's good. That's good. But true freshman, first start of his career. He's dynamic as an athlete, but how proven is he as a passer? He's not. And I think with Devin Dampier, there's like a scary element to him because he's a pretty good passer. I think gets the credit for. I think a lot of people hold on to that Texas Tech game where he was just kind of hucking it up hoping for the best at times, but he is a pretty polished passer at times. And so if you're Colorado, you know you're going to have to defend a running quarterback, but you'd much rather face a guy who has 9 more career passing attempts than myself, than Devin Dampier.
1,000%. And I do think that Utah can still win with a Bird Ficklin in there because the totality of this team. AP poll ranked them 27th, basically. They just missed out on staying in the top 25. Only 2 losses to a BYU and a Tech team that I still view in very high regard. For Kevin, for me, I'd say the story for the Buffs is, can this team do what they did, replicate that performance they had against Iowa State when you beat a really good team after fallen in a couple of tight games to a Georgia Tech, to a Houston, to a BYU, all those winnable games for the Buffs? Can you replicate that in Salt Lake City? What do you feel like the biggest story is for the Buffs going into this one?
Yeah, I think the at Salt Lake City part is always hard. You guys defend Bryce Eccles. No, I'm just kidding. Bryce Eccles Stadium quite well.
Dare you?
How dare I? I know I had to. Shout out to our good friend Chris Lovell.
The ghost.
No, it's hard to win there, and I think that's always going to remain a constant. And for Colorado, it's a very hostile environment. I'd probably say, I don't want to disrespect anybody's program, but I would probably say it's one of the most hostile environments they're going to play in this year, if not the most hostile environment. Very tough. And we talked about Utah's quarterbacks. I think Colorado's quarterback, Caden Salter, is like very much the wild card in every game. It feels like for you or for Colorado, simply because there's weeks like the Iowa State game where he's dealing. Right. There's weeks like that where it's like, okay, he's making plays with his legs. He's decisive when he's throwing. He's hitting the open man. And then there's weeks like the one against TCU where he throws 3 picks, and I think in the first half. And it's like, okay, how reliable is he? Which Caden Salter are we getting? It reminds me of, this is going to be a deep pull for some people, but Ole Miss used to have a quarterback his name was Bo Wallace. And so the whole thing around Bo Wallace was like good Bo or bad Bo. Like, are you getting the good version or the bad version? And I feel like that's sort of the vibe around Caden Salter. Now, I do think he sort of figured things out, and I do feel like Colorado's run game is kind of coming along nicely. But yeah, Caden Salter is the biggest question mark for me, just because he's been all over the place, right? Colorado fans went from wanting him benched for Juju Lewis to all of a sudden they're like, he's back. So who knows?
Yeah, it's one of those things. And who knows with Bird Ficklin? I've liked what I've seen from Bird. Let's break down those 9 pass attempts. Garbage time against Cal Poly. Garbage time against West Virginia. 1 garbage time against Arizona. It's never come in meaningful moments. And he is a true freshman. And Kevin, I don't need to remind you what it was like in Salt Lake City last year with a true freshman quarterback who, it's the fact that Bird's already beaten out Isaac is a testament to what Bird has been able to do. And maybe
I'm thinking about that all season, actually. I'm just like, whatever happened to that Isaac Wilson
It's
guy?
weird because they said he was the starter, but then the OC was like, well, it's really 1A, 1B. And then like they kind of just slowly but surely made Bird the guy. It's been weird. But, you know, if Dampier plays, that would be massive for Utah because I do think he's one of the dynamic and one of the best QBs in in the Big 12 when he's healthy and himself, but I don't know if he is healthy. And he was clearly not the same player in the second half against BYU than he even was in the first half. So that's a huge loss for Utah if he can't go. But I do look at this Utah team. I say, hey, the offensive line, the run game, it's the best rushing offense in the Big 12, sixth best in the country. They play a 6 offensive lineman. That bodes well for Utah. And we can talk about some of the Buffs' run defense issues in a moment too. But one thing I'm really curious about for this Utah team too, if we were say a defensive story, no Lander Barton in the first half. That's a big loss for this Utah team. He had a targeting call on him the last game, so he is going to have to miss the first half of this one, Kevin. So that'll be a big loss for this Utah team that has struggled tackling. And the Buffs, maybe not Travis Hunter out there on the outside, but some pretty talented pass catchers still.
Yeah, they have a lot of good receivers. I think this offense, because of the struggles at quarterback, and I hate to put all the blame on one person, I think it's the play calling and the quarterback. So we'll sort of divvy up the blame there. The offense hasn't had the chance to shine at all times, but they have some really good receivers, right? Sincere Brown, I forget which game it was. I think it was the Wyoming game, if I'm not mistaken, which it was Wyoming, but still, he was clocked at like 22 miles per hour. Like the dude is fast, right? They have Omarion Miller who, I mean, he kind of would have a breakout game here and there last year. Like now he's the guy. And so they have a really good receiver core. Joseph Williams and Omarion are separated by like 1 yard. They're both in 300. So they have a lot of weapons. The offensive line is a lot better. If you asked me like last year how I would feel about this Utah team going up against this Colorado team, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know. The offensive line's a little sketchy. But this year, Colorado's offensive line has been a revelation. I think
Crazy.
a lot of people are sort of like, dang, imagine if Shedeur had this line, right? I think Colorado maybe doesn't lose last year, or at least loses 1 or 2 games, right? And maybe are in the playoff. So much improved offensive line. Wide receivers are still good. The running backs are better. It's just the quarterback, which, I mean, you're replacing the most accurate quarterback in college football history. Career completion percentage. Yeah. So yeah, he was. I think he completed like 73% of his career passes. So super accurate, super smart. And I just don't know. Like it was going to be hard to replace him, but I don't know if we all expected this much of a drop off. But
Well, that's why his numbers retired, right, Kevin?
yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I think Shedeur, I mean, he broke 100 school records. This is my tangent on that because I feel like this is always something that comes up. Shedeur Sanders broke 100 school records, right? I feel like people forget where Colorado was when him and his father got there. And so every program has different standards in terms of like why a number is retired, right? There's certain programs where there's a guy from the 1930s who, I don't know, was like the punter, the quarterback, and the starting corner who has their number retired, right? So I don't think you get to talk about Colorado without talking about Travis Hunter or him. And so I agree with his number being retired. I know it's not the same for every program, but that's my stance on the matter.
Yeah, I just didn't love the timing so soon, but I would have had no issues if it was a few years down the road. So, and that argument for that could be, hey, if you're going to do it, then why not do it now? Really quick, Kevin, before we hit our ad break, I'll say I think Utah is a top 5 team in the Big 12 still right now. Currently, I'm curious, where do you view the Buffs right now in the Big 12?
Oof. Let's see. There's 16 teams. No, I'm just kidding. I have them in that 8 to 10 range, probably.
Okay.
I think the Big 12 standings are a little wonky right now. And just based off of games played, I think Colorado is sort of they're sitting in third to last ahead of West Virginia and Oklahoma State. I feel like they're better than Arizona. I think they're better than Kansas. I think they could be better than Kansas State, right? UCF as well. Like I think they're above those teams. It's just how the schedule has played out so far.